Bitcoin just confirmed the weekly close under the 50 weekly moving average and even under the most important support line. So what is going to be next for Bitcoin? Because the historical data shows us that the bear market is now going to get started. So I think this is going to be the perfect opportunity to make an update video about all the bull and bear cases for Bitcoin from off exactly this weekly close, because I think there are still multiple scenarios to possibly play out here, and I will discuss all of them in today's update video. So this is definitely going to be a very important one, because Bitcoin is now at this pivotal level of support where we can be bouncing from, or we can be falling much deeper. So let's discuss exactly that within today's update video. We'll discuss not only all of the bullish and bearish scenarios for Bitcoin, also my Bitcoin trade. I will give a big update on that, my Ethereum trading position, and much more important price data, charts and news hitting the markets here. So from there, guys, make sure to first of all subscribe to the channel and watch and like my latest YouTube videos, that we can dive into the most important content. Since, like stated in the intro, Bitcoin just fell below the 50 weekly moving average, and this is our first confirmation that a bear market might be getting started for Bitcoin here. Not only we closed below the 50 weekly moving average, but also below this important support line for Bitcoin, which did provide us support during the tariffs here and during this earlier crash in 2024. So that is indeed not looking very good, and a weekly close on this level is something we've not seen this entire bull market. So it is indeed a confirmation that something is going to happen for Bitcoin. So is the bear market going to get started? This is the first scenario. According to all of the historical data, yes, the bear market is going to get started from here, because every single time Bitcoin loses the 50 weekly moving average in Q4 of the post-halving year, we do see the bear market getting started, and exactly that is now happening once again for Bitcoin. So indeed, the highest chance now is that Bitcoin is going to enter a bear market, but there are still some other scenarios left and some things to look out for, and that's what we need to discuss in this update video. But the historical data does show that indeed this weekly close is looking very dangerous for Bitcoin, because every single time we saw this, we saw a major bear market getting started. But looking at this cycle, it is most definitely a little bit different, because what we saw during all of the post-halving year cycles before 2014, but basically starting since 2017, was of course an altcoin season, and that is something we've not seen this cycle. We've not seen somewhat of an altcoin season. Also, we've not seen any euphoria this cycle, so that is indeed a big difference. That could be a reason why you say that the top is not in this time, because we have not seen any euphoria. And that could be an argument that this cycle does look a little bit more like what we saw in 2019, where also Bitcoin started trending much higher, altcoins did not follow that much, there was not as much euphoria as we saw during, for example, 2017 and 2021, and of course we had a shift in the Federal Reserve policy, in the monetary policy. Because in 2019 for Bitcoin, we had of course the ending of QT and later the start of QE. About a later start of QE, we don't know much yet, but what we do know is that QT is going to be ending on the 1st of December, and Bitcoin is starting to dump like it also did in 2019. The top was formed before QT even ended. We started somewhat of a mini bear market, also falling below the 50 weekly moving average, then bouncing back above it, and then COVID did hit us. So that is why I did draw out a black swan event. Of course, there's always a possibility to see something like that once again, but not looking at that, and if we had not seen a black swan event, it was likely that Bitcoin was going to stay trading above the 50 weekly moving average and eventually hitting the 2020 and 2021 bull market years. So this is an interesting scenario I'm also keeping my eyes on, because I think the monetary policy is very important for Bitcoin and of course crypto market in general. And after QE got started in 2021, we of course also saw a major altcoin season, and then the argument is there that indeed we did not saw an altcoin season with QE in 2017, but I would say that QE is going to be a very important factor for a new altcoin season because we have so much more altcoins. So there's also much more liquidity needed. And in 2017, I don't think that was necessarily the case. So that is a big difference I currently see in those scenarios. And that's why I think that the monetary policy shift is also going to be very important for Bitcoin. So let's say QT is going to end in December and the Fed is just going to start QE in Q1 2026. What is going to happen then? For example, with COVID, we saw it happening because of a major black swan event. Something like that could happen again. But eventually, after QE got started, we saw a major bull market for Bitcoin. And after it ended, or just before it ended, we saw Bitcoin topping out and eventually hitting a new bear market. So that is something I'm also keeping my eyes on. Also, we're looking at this, and that is it possible that this is just going to be a major fake out for Bitcoin? Historical data definitely shows that this is not going to be the case, but we should be open for the scenario, I personally think. So that's why I always said that I do want to see 2 or maybe even 3 weekly closes below this level, depending on how low we are going to drop. Because what we, for example, saw with the Nasdaq during the tariffs, we also saw the Nasdaq falling down quite heavily below the 50 weekly moving average, then bouncing back above it and just continuing the bull market. What I think is going to be more likely for Bitcoin is that we see somewhat of a relief rally back towards the 50 weekly moving average, because that is what we have seen every single time. After Bitcoin falling back below it, we do see a bounce back and complacency and relief rally back to the top side after breaking the 50 weekly moving average. And then when you see rejection there again, you can definitely confirm another bear market in my personal opinion. But that is a rally I would be expecting. I don't necessarily think that we should expect that this is going to be a fake out, because this weekly close, of course, is telling us something. But let's see about exactly that. And of course, we also have this important factor still playing for Bitcoin. And that is that the dead cross is now flashing once again during this bull market. The dead cross did correspond or did align with the market bottoms. Every single time once we did confirm the dead cross, we had already seen the low in the market. So if that is going to be happening again, this is going to be the low for Bitcoin, about 93k. And you don't want to see Bitcoin dropping much lower than that, because then also the dead cross theory from this cycle is going to get invalidated, in my personal opinion. And that could happen because we do know that during the post-halving years, the final dead cross is usually the start of the bear market, or not even the start. Usually the bear market hits before the dead cross, because the dead cross is of course a lagging indicator. So the bear market already starts, and from there the bear market just continues. So that's what we see every single post-halving year, and that aligns with, for example, this chart over here, where once we do see the break below it, the bear market is going to get started. But if we could see a big bounce and we break back above the 50 weekly moving average, we do confirm it as a major fake out, and we basically confirm the dead cross here, like we have seen every single time this cycle. Yes, then you can be saying that the 4-year cycle might actually be broken. Of course, there's always a slight chance that this could happen. So I'm open for the scenario, but like stated with the fake out, I don't think this is the most likely scenario, but I'm definitely open for it happening. We should just see where price is going to move next from here. If you're going to see another big low, then it's also then Bitcoin is also going to be behaving much different than what we saw during the previous dead cross. So let's see about exactly that. And now I think we have discussed the most important scenarios. I do want to discuss my Bitcoin trading position, because what am I going to do with my Bitcoin trading position now? Because I got filled on all my limit orders, and I'm in quite a large Bitcoin position now, well over 100k. So what's going to be next? First of all, I will be putting a tight stop loss around the 91 and 90k area, because I think currently Bitcoin is bouncing on the yearly open in a big volume, a range in the big volume area, and I've been predicting in the latest YouTube videos that Bitcoin was going to find some support around the yearly open or a little bit above it. I personally think if Bitcoin is going to drop out of this support area, there's also less volume below us here, so I think the bulls will have quite a hard time to be supporting and also protecting this area. So if Bitcoin is going to drop much lower, I think if Bitcoin is going to drop below this support box, I think it could go quite fast, and Bitcoin can dump more heavily to the downside, and that is why I do want to have my stop loss set around the 91 and 90k levels. If you do want to get updated about this stop loss today, make sure to come over to the private VIP Telegram group, because here we'll be sharing my exact stop loss and all of my other setups for my trading position. So make sure to come and check this out, also with the link in the description on this update video. That's where you can and join the private VIP Telegram channel here for updates on my trading positions. So make sure to come and check it out. But that's what I'm currently doing for my trades. One trade is in profit now, the other ones are all on a big loss. 93k, 98, 100k and the 103k levels. So let's see how this is going to perform from exactly here. The first place, why do I even keep my trades open, of course, is because I think even if Bitcoin is going to hit the bear market, we should see somewhat of a relief rally back over 100k, I would say, for Bitcoin, possibly getting rejected at the 50 weekly moving average and then moving lower once again. And then I will still be making nice profits on my trading position. So I think with a tight stop loss, this is still going to be a good trading setup for the moment here. But like stated, I will keep you guys up to date also in the private VIP Telegram channel. And now back to the Bitcoin chart we discussed yesterday, and that is Bitcoin with the Fear and Greed index. And some interesting data I see is that Bitcoin never topped out in fear like this. So indeed, fear is hitting the market much faster than we have seen during other cycle tops, because the cycle top is indeed a little bit different. There is much less euphoria and the market is much more fearful. So it is an interesting indicator, and if Bitcoin is going to top out, we can definitely confirm that the cycle top is much different than what we saw in 2021 and 2017 based on euphoria and based on the Fear and Greed index, which does strengthen the case that also the cycle and how it's going to continue from here could be looking a little bit different than 2021 and 2017. So that is why I'm even looking into these possible scenarios, because the cycle is indeed looking a little bit different than the typical 4-year cycles we have seen for Bitcoin. Of course, I understand this also because of the institutional inflows, institutional money, but it is indeed a little bit different, and we should be looking into more scenarios than just only one from here, in my opinion. Bitcoin RSI dropped to the lowest level since 2023, which is quite insane. It dropped to the lowest level since basically the start of this bull market after the bear market here. So that is showing you that Bitcoin is indeed not having a lot of strength at the current moment. It might be getting very oversold, but on the other hand, during a bear market, if a bear market is truly going to hit, Bitcoin is just going to get more and more oversold. The RSI indicator can be moving much deeper. So I don't think this is going to be the most important indicator to look at the current moment for Bitcoin, because it doesn't matter if a bear market is truly going to hit here. The US government shutdown is now over, and we have some important economic data coming up for the week. We have some jobs data, some GDP and inflation. We have some payrolls and the CPI and PPI, not only for this week, but for the next few weeks. And all of this important data will be absolutely critical for the next FOMC meeting. Since traders are now expecting that the Fed is not going to cut interest rates during the next meeting, and that's of course going to have a big effect on our second scenario here with QT and QE in play and with the monetary policy of the Federal Reserve. So this is indeed going to be a very important meeting for Bitcoin and crypto, for markets in general. And I think that the drop of these rate cut odds and did cause a lot of the weakness the crypto market has been seeing since the November top, and eventually also stock market is going to feel this if the rate cut odds are going to stay like this, I personally think. So eyes on the odds. On 10 December we have the next FOMC meeting. Of course the odds can still be moving higher. This week we have a lot of officials speaking, so maybe we can get some new information, but most likely all of this data, for example the jobs data, which the Fed does rely on heavily, the rate cut odds could still change here. We can move higher, we can move even lower. Of course nothing is decided yet, but it's definitely a factor that has been causing some weakness in the crypto market, I personally think. And now I do want to give a big update on my Ethereum trading position, because on Ethereum I got filled on 2 orders. I don't have a large Ethereum position like I currently have on Bitcoin, also because I think if Bitcoin is just going to enter a bear market, Ethereum is also going to move much lower. It's not going to be like Ethereum will outperform if Bitcoin enters a bear market. That's not going to be the case, I personally think. What I do think, if Bitcoin is going to see a bounce, Ethereum will see an even larger bounce, and that is why I'm still in my trading positions here. If you do want to join me on my Ethereum positions, make sure to come over to Elbank, because you can be trading ETH, but also a lot of other different altcoins and a lot of different pairs here, so make sure to come and check it out. You can now claim also a 2.5k deposit bonus and a 5k generous refund on your first trading position. This should be one of the last days you can claim this offer, so make sure to come and check it out with the link in the description on this update video, because there you can not only claim these offers but also a $100 voucher. So make sure to come and check it out if you're getting interested in that. Now I do want to discuss the final Ethereum charts. I think the Ethereum analysis now is definitely less relevant than it's on Bitcoin, because like I said earlier, if Bitcoin is going to enter a bear market, Ethereum will just follow. But Ethereum is now at this important support level here. We have been bouncing from this level a few times now, and if the market is going to find some positive momentum in the near future, the reclaim of the range low here is going to be a very important one. Then ETH can be moving to mid-range and maybe even back to range highs. But this is indeed a very important support level, because below this we don't have a lot of other support levels laying, and I think probably we are going to hit the top or the range high of this consolidation phase we saw earlier in 2025 here. That's going to be the most likely outcome if Ethereum will be dropping much lower. Ethereum also confirmed a weekly close under the 50 weekly moving average here. Unfortunately, now we are basically trading at the 50 weekly moving average, so not looking good for Ethereum as well, but still a little bit stronger than Bitcoin, which is of course quite interesting. But let's see how this will develop in the next few days. If Bitcoin is going to see a major bounce, I think still my Ethereum trade could also be performing quite well. So let's see about exactly that. And guys, that was it for today's update video. I hope you guys enjoyed today's update video. If you did so, make sure to come over to this channel, subscribe to the channel, watch and like my latest YouTube videos. Then I will see you guys within my next update video tomorrow.